Welcome to Moonlit Romantic, a quiet place for tender stories told softly for the end of your day. Tonight's story is Swipe Right, Stay a While. In a skyline that never sleeps, Emma Lawson leads a startup by daylight and makes room for loneliness by midnight. One small swipe becomes a doorway. To Ryan, a builder with a patient grin, and a truth the city rarely teaches. Ambition and love don't have to live on opposite sides. There will be late night messages and early morning hope, coffee that tastes like courage, snow-soft promises under streetlights, and a choice to win differently together. Settle your shoulders, slow your breath, let the screens dim and the day drift out to sea. This is your gentle story, meant to carry you towards sleep, one quiet beat at a time. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Match. Emma Lawson lay awake in a room that hummed like a distant beehive, the quiet full of small sounds that only arrive after midnight. The refrigerator's sigh, the whisper of the building settling, the faraway hush of tires on rain-damp streets. Sleep would not come. Her company's product launch glowed at the back of her mind like a neon sign, and every thought she dimmed lit up another brighter one. On the coffee table, her phone winked. The dating app icon waited, cheerful and harmless, a pastel. Doctor to a place she had sworn off. She had deleted and reinstalled it more times than she cared to admit. Tonight, she told herself she would only look just long enough to remind her heart that other lives existed beyond pitch decks and demo days. The profile appeared after a few idle swipes. A man in a navy Henley, leaning against a cafe counter, a half laugh caught on his face, as though someone had said something unexpectedly kind. His name was Ryan. His bio read with disarming simplicity: builder, thinker, not great at cooking, but excellent at takeout orders. Swipe right, stay a while. Maybe it was the hour. Maybe it was the laugh. Maybe it was the way the line sounded like a dare. And a welcome at once. Emma's thumb hovered, then slid. The match badge bloomed. A heartbeat later, a message arrived. Honest question, Emma. If a grilled cheese is made in a skillet with too much butter, is it a crime or a love letter? A smile ambushed her. A love letter, she typed. But the jury is still out on tomato soup as mandatory accompaniment. Your verdict is merciful. I am relieved, he wrote. Tell me your perfect rainy evening. 3 details. Go. She glanced at the window where the city wore a mist like a shawl. An old cashmere sweater. A hardcover with a creaky spine. Ginger tea in a chipped mug that no one else gets to use. Your specificity is devastating. I can only counter with a threadbare hoodie, a record that crackles, and ramen that is 90% broth comfort, 10% noodle optimism. They drifted from there to favorite side streets, to a memory of a childhood treehouse, to a confession about the terror and thrill of making something from nothing, the relief of being, understood even in glimmers, loosened something tight in her chest. He asked questions that stood, open like porch doors, patient and warm. She answered more honestly than she intended. When the clock crept toward the tender edge of morning, they signed off with reluctance. Emma turned out the light and lay in the dark, awake but soothed, a small ember of delight glowing in the quiet. She did not know that somewhere not far away, the same man would step into a boardroom in a handful of days and become the rival, standing across from her, calm and incisive and wearing that same almost laugh. For now, he was simply a voice and a grin and a grilled cheese philosopher. Sleep found her at last, and it was soft. Chapter 2. Late night messages, early morning smiles. The week unfurled like silk. Morning brought a message that made her coffee taste brighter. Evening brought a story that made the city feel less sharp. They kept it light and oddly tender, the edges of. Their work lives sketched, but never colored fully in. 3 songs you would play driving with the windows down. He challenged one afternoon. Something with harmonies that feel like home. Something that should be played too loud. Something that makes me cry in a good way, she answered, pleased by the riddle of it. Acceptable. My list includes a horn section at golden hour and a chorus you have to sing off-key, or it does not count. He admitted to learning enough French to order croissants badly. She confessed to the talisman of her grandmother's recipe box and how the presence of those stained cards steadied her when negotiations turned into storms. He told her he ran at dawn with old sneakers and a loyal playlist. She told him she believed dawn runs were for saints and overachievers, and she was neither. There were small, telling overlaps. He mentioned a design sprint. She pretended she had not noticed the phrase. She referenced a beta release. He let it float by. They were 2 people carrying satchels of secrets, walking side by side down a conversation lane, not looking inside the other's bag, but feeling the weight. One night, after a long meeting that felt like walking uphill against wind, Emma typed, "Sometimes I think my spine is made of deadlines." A pause, then, "Sometimes I think mine is made of promises I am afraid to break." She stared at that for a long time. "What do you do with that knowledge?" "I try to keep better promises," he wrote, "to people who deserve them." including myself. A softness moved through her like warm water. They said goodnight in the way of people who are not ready to let go, adding gentle flourishes that prolong the moment. One more joke, one more question, one more small admission. In the hush after, Emma propped her phone on the recipe box, as if letting her grandmother witness this unexpected grace. She imagined calloused hands in kneading dough, a woman humming in an old kitchen, a memory that made all modern rooms kinder. The thought made her braver and a little more afraid, both at once. When Ryan suggested coffee, the word felt simple, and also like a door to a room she had never entered. She said yes before she could overthink it, her heart lifting and bracing simultaneously, as though expecting both a gift and a gust of wind. Chapter 3. The Reveal in Daylight. The cafe was all honeyed wood and chalkboard menus, and the smell of cinnamon warming the air. Emma arrived early and chose a table near the window, as if light could protect her from embarrassment. She placed her palms on the cool tabletop and told her breathing to behave. The bell chimed, footsteps, a rush of outdoor chill. She glanced up and felt the floor tilt in the smallest, strangest way. Ryan. Not just Ryan. The easy grin and Navy Henley. But Ryan Hart, the founder whose name, threaded through headlines and conference programs, the mind she had debated silently across podcasts and panels. He stilled too, then laughed softly, the disbelief making it rough for a breath. They stood as if each had stumbled into a mirror in a brand new house. "You are Emma Lawson," he said, wonder colliding with rue. "And you are Ryan Hart," she said, her mouth trying on a smile and a frown, and landing somewhere human. They sat because standing felt too dramatic, and because coffee exists for moments like this, to give your hand something to do when your heart is reviewing a contract you never meant to sign. The first sips were awkward. Their rivalry, kept at the polite distance of industry chatter, had entered the room like an uninvited guest who chose the chair between them. But then he said, light as a leaf on water, "For the record, my grilled cheese claims remain accurate." And her laugh escaped, glad to be there. The edge softened. The third chair scooted back a few inches. They talked like people building a bridge one plank at a time. He told a story about a product failure that turned into a feature. She admitted she kept a pixelated screenshot of her first silly logo in a folder titled Bravery. He said he liked her coffee, black as constellations order, because it suited her clarity. She said his caramel latte was obvious proof he believed sweetness belonged in the serious hours. When the cups were empty, they walked outside into cold sunlight and a wind that made their cheeks glow. The city dashed by with its horns and purpose, a river of urgency they both knew too well. On the corner, they paused. "Do we pretend this did not happen?" he asked gently. "I do not know," she said, startled by the honesty in her voice. "It happened, and I liked it." Relief moved through his expression like a tide. "Me too." She nodded, feeling the shape of a decision, but not naming it yet. "We have a deal coming," she said finally. We do, he said, not flinching. I want both, she whispered, as if saying it louder might make it less possible. A fair fight at the table. And this, he smiled in a way that made the winter feel less sharp. Then we will be brave, and careful, and honest. They parted with a promise to try, that small word carrying more weight than either had expected when they installed a cheerful app on an ordinary night. She walked away with her chin tucked into her scarf and the sense that something tender had slipped into her very efficient life and made a home. Chapter 4. Snow, streetlight, and a choice. The days that followed arranged themselves like dominoes. Meetings, mock-ups, models, calls, revisions, and the inevitable glare of negotiation. Emma sat at long tables, beneath longer agendas, and made her case with the calm of a woman who had practiced listening to her own instincts, in rooms where they were not always welcome. Across from her, Ryan was precise and steady, the kind of opponent one is grateful to have, because the game becomes worthy. Between those hours, there were quieter ones. A walk after work along a river that wore the city's lights, like bracelets. A bowl of noodles at a place with fogged windows, and a patient cook who hummed. A hug that lingered just long enough to make both of them inhale. They set gentle rules no one else needed to see. They would never bring confidential specifics into their evenings. They would never weaponize a confidence. They would never ask the other to be smaller. The rules did not flatten the spark. If anything, integrity made it burn cleaner. On a night with snow beginning to sift down, they wandered a neighborhood of stoops and iron rails, their steps slow, their breath little clouds. Emma tucked her gloved hand into the crook of his arm. The world had the muffled hush of a library. Streetlights made halos in the falling white. Tomorrow matters, she said softly, meaning the contract, the signatures, the headlines ready to leap. It does, he answered, no tremor in his tone, and a kindness at the edges. After a heartbeat, he added, you matter more. Her feet stopped of their own accord. He turned to face her, snow catching in his lashes. In that pause, in that steady looking, old stories fell away. The one that said love must arrive only after victory. The one that said you must choose between a heart and a horizon. I used to believe, she said, tasting the truth as she shaped it, that love and ambition were two sides of a seesaw. That one rose only if the other fell. But I do not want to live that way. Then we will not, he said simply. We will build a better lever. We are builders. That is what we do. She laughed, the sound spilling into the cold, like cinnamon steam. A better lever. He took her hand, his glove against hers, warm through wool. If tomorrow asks me to lose, I will lose the part that can be rebuilt. I will not lose you. The words landed in her chest, like a small, brave bell tolling a new hour. She thought of her grandmother's recipe cards, the notes in the margins, like quiet coaching. She thought of the girl she had once been, who kept a pixelated logo, to remind herself that beginning is an act of tenderness. I do not want you to lose, she said. I want us to win differently. They stood like that, the city moving around them, and then he leaned in and kissed her. It was unhurried and careful, a vow written in breath The kind of kiss that says we will take our time, we will be good to each other. We will not confuse speed with devotion. Morning came. The negotiation unfolded. It was hard and it was fair. Emma spoke with clarity and gave ground where it made the future stronger. Ryan argued with grace and yielded where it kept faith with his team. What they forged was not the easy victory either side's cheerleaders might have predicted. It was something better. A partnership, modeled like a bridge, load-bearing and elegant, capable of carrying many feet across. When the last signatures dried, cameras flashed, hands were shaken, and quiet congratulations threaded the room. Later, when the doors closed and the chatter thinned, Emma and Ryan found a small hallway with a window that looked out over the river. The snow had stopped. The water was dark glass. "We did it," he murmured. "We did it," she echoed, feeling a bloom of relief and pride and something more private. He tipped his forehead to hers, the gesture as tender as a whisper. Dinner to celebrate? No headlines, just us. In a place where grilled cheese is considered a love letter, she said. "Mandatory tomato soup?" Highly encouraged. They laughed, the sound braided, the day's edges softening. She slipped her hand into his. It fit there as if written that way long ago and only now discovered. That night they ate at a tiny counter where the cook wore a baseball cap and called everyone darling. They clinked glasses of ginger ale. They traded bites. They planned nothing beyond the next kindness, the next honest conversation, the next ordinary morning, made brighter by a message that arrived before the alarm. In the weeks that followed, the bridge they built held. Work was work, demanding and alive. Love was love, patient and curious. They did not balance them so much as let each inform the other. Courage in one room making courage in another room easier. Tenderness at night, making clarity at noon more natural. When one staggered, the other steadied. When one soared, the other clapped. On a gentle Sunday, Emma brought out the recipe box and placed it on the counter. She lifted a card smudged with flour and told a story about hands that taught her to knead. Ryan listened with his whole face. Later, he slid a record from a sleeve and set the needle gently down. Music rose, crackling and warm. They moved in the kitchen as if the song had always known their names. At some soft hour, she looked up and found him watching her, the way a person looks at a sunrise from a quiet hill. No rush, no conquest, just reverence for the light arriving. "I am glad I swiped right," she said, the words simple and true. "I am glad you stayed a while," he answered. Outside, the city carried on. Tire hush and laughter from a sidewalk, and a busker testing a melody. Inside, the home they were learning to make hummed gently, a room full of steam and music, and the peace that comes when two people decide that a bright life can hold both daring and rest. Love, they discovered, is not the enemy of ambition. It is the hearth that warms it. And when sleep finally reached them, it came easy. Thank you for listening to Moonlit Romantic. Emma and Ryan learned a tender arithmetic, that work can be worthy, and love can be steady, and the bridge between them is built with honest words and unhurried nights. If this story brought you a little calm, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a gentler evening. Rest easy now. Let the city grow quiet outside your window. And remember, sometimes one small swipe is just a way for two brave hearts to choose each other again and again. Good night from a Moonlit Romantic. Sleep well.